As is traditional, we fill these moments with the ancient words of the Psalms. We'll be doing others as well. But on such a gorgeous day. Esa einai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri. Esa einai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai ose shamayim va'aretz. Ezri me'im Adonai ose shamayim va'aretz. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. See, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Adonai is your guardian. Adonai is your protection at your right hand. By the day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. And Adonai will guard you from all harm. God will guard your life. Adonai will guard your going and coming now and forever. Esainai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri. Esainai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri.
Welcome. Thank you for being here today as we remember Rabbi Arlene Schuster. 2 quick housekeeping things. First, if you have not already silenced your cell phone, please take a moment to do that. And second, if you have a harder time hearing the way our sound system works, I recommend moving a little bit farther back, or we also have a few hearing devices available that Liz can help you get set up with. So if you find that you're having a hard time hearing, you can just pop back to Liz. They'll help you out. We come together today with 2 purposes in mind. First is to honor Rabbi Arlene Schuster by remembering her and fulfilling the mitzvah of accompanying the dead for burial. The second is to comfort each other, to comfort her family, to comfort friends, all of her students who are here today, and the wide circle of people that were impacted by her. King Solomon wrote in the book of Ecclesiastes, "To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance." And so it is the natural way of things that we lose people we love. But he also wrote in the same book, "The eye never has its fill of seeing." And yes, Arlene lived a long, full life, has 5 wonderful children, many grandchildren, many great-grandchildren, and leaves quite a legacy. And at the same time, whenever someone leaves this world and our life, it is always too soon. And so we'll mourn, and at the same time, we'll affirm all the amazing things that she brought to us, the gifts she gave to us, and the legacy that she leaves. Our rabbis taught that there are 3 crowns: the crown of Torah, the crown of priesthood, and the crown of royalty. But they emphasize that the crown of a good name excels them all. We read, "Tov Shem, Mishem and Tov, a good name is to be treasured above precious oil. Wealth, health, even life passes away, but a good name lives forever. It is this view that the Talmud teaches: monuments need not be erected for the righteous. Their deeds are their memorials. They will be remembered and revered, as Arlene will be remembered and revered for the kindness she showed, for the love that she gave. She certainly is a shining example of what it means to be a morah, a teacher, a rav, a mensch in this world. We're going to begin hearing from Mark, one of Arlene's sons, who is going to be sharing the eulogy on behalf of the whole family today. As you can imagine, there are many people with lots of stories, and there will be plenty of time to share stories at the 3 Shiva Minyanim. And so we're going to hear a good amount about Arlene through the eyes of Mark, representing the family. So I'll invite you to come on up, Mark.
These might come in handy. Ancestors, a poem. Ancestors flowing through us, coursing through our veins, encircling us, an ever-present, relentless force. Altering our awareness, a quiet, gentle reminder, our existence stands not solitary, but connected. Ancestors, looking generations through our eyes, bursting forth from depths of heart and soul, crying out, "We are part of you. Turn not aside from our longings. Deny not our existence." As water rushing toward the sea, we continuously emerge from another time and place, ebbing forward, linking ourselves with the ocean of eternity. By Arlene Schuster, September 6th, 1977. On behalf of my brothers, Steve, Brian, Paul, and Neil, we'd like to welcome everyone here today. Thank you for being here to honor and mourn with us our mom, Arlene Schuster. And of course, for being here to help us celebrate her life. And what an extraordinary life it was. Our mom was many things to many people. And looking out at this room, I know she touched all of us in different yet impactful ways. Today, I have the honor to share with you the story of her life, visit some things many of you know, and a few things about her that you're going to learn for the very first time. You know, I think when your parent lives to a ripe old age, one's relationship with them evolves and changes over time. Perhaps as their children, we gain more awareness and reverence as to who they are as adults, outside of a view of them as a parent. One distinct element of this for me is just how many people over the years I've met, and without prompting, have told me how our mom influenced their lives and impacted them profoundly. Things like, "If it weren't for your mom, I would have never had a bat mitzvah." Or, "Your mom was a total inspiration to me for going to rabbinic school." Or, "I learned how to bake bread in your mom's kitchen." Or, "Your mom took me in when I had no other place to go." Or simply, "I absolutely love your mom." And there are so many more I could share, but that's not a bad list of sentiments. Looking back at our mom's life, all that she accomplished, every facet of her character and what she stood for and meant to others, I'm just kind of blown away. Yet in deep reflection, so grateful for the influences she had on me, my brothers, her grandchildren, and so many others. Arlene Schuster was born December 6, 1938, in Seattle to George and Sarah, known as Toots, Mosler. She and her sister, our Auntie Miriam, lived in a beautiful home in the Madrona neighborhood. Her father, our grandfather, was the patriarch of the family. He was smart, loving, funny, and a well-respected lawyer. Her mother, our grandmother, was in the traditional sense what was then called a homemaker, and was one of the kindest, sweetest people you'd ever want to meet. My grandparents both came from hardworking immigrant families, and they had made a good life for themselves and their girls. By all accounts, it was an idyllic life. My mom often shares memories of growing up in that neighborhood and the two homes they lived in on Wellington Avenue, like walking to school with the neighbor kids or lighting fireworks in the middle of the street on the 4th of July, and all the fond memories of her grandparents coming from Bellingham to stay for the weekend. It was in this house, too, that her first cousin, Lawrence Mosler, would come to live as a teenager after both his parents passed away at early ages. She loved when her parents would host dinner parties and poker nights and would hide out, listening to their chatter, oftentimes in Yiddish. These early influences were indelible for our mom, that your door should always be open, especially to those who needed a place to stay. Her childhood was one of happiness and joy. Her fondest memories were that of visiting her grandparents in Bellingham, the Glazers, spending time with her grandfather, who she referred to as my Zeta. He ran a secondhand store where she would spend afternoons looking through all the interesting treasures and knickknacks. In the evenings after work, they'd walk into town to buy ice cream cones. Her favorite was Raspberry Ripple. Whenever she spoke of her Zeta, she would get a glow about her and then misty-eyed. For the entirety of her life, she would tell you how much she still missed my Zeta. The importance of closeness to grandparents was something my mom passed down to her children and grandchildren, like ancestors flowing through us. She shared the many wonderful memories of time with her mom, teaching her how to cook, remembering the sliced peaches with powdered sugar, homemade applesauce from scratch, or freshly baked chocolate chip cookies. Her father, coming from a family of bakers, taught her the art and science of baking. This is where she would learn to bake challah, bagels, cinnamon bread, breadsticks, and more. She, in turn, would teach her children and grandchildren how to bake, passing down the family recipes to now 7 generations. I know that for the grandkids, these memories are some of the most meaningful and special for you in the time you spent with your grandma. As a child, she learned how to sew, took drama classes, attended Jewish summer camp, and loved the annual family vacations to Orcas Island. She was an excellent student, graduating top of her high school class and speaking at the graduation ceremony. It was also during these formative years that the importance of her Jewish identity as an individual began to form. Attending Sunday school at Temple de Hirsch, going to synagogue nearly every Friday night for Shabbat, singing in the temple choir, and attending the annual mother-daughter temple luncheon, where, yes, believe it or not, she was often in the fashion show. In addition to her parents and Zeta, there was another person in our mom's life which had a profound effect, for which she had an extremely close relationship, and that was our Aunt Muriel. Auntie Muriel, a character of extraordinary measures, treated our mom like a daughter, as she didn't have any children of her own. I don't think words can adequately describe how much they loved each other. Auntie Muriel was a constant figure in our lives growing up, and as Mom liked to say, there will never be another Auntie Muriel. As she moved through her happy childhood into young adulthood, one meeting would change the course of her entire life. When she was 17, my grandparents took the family on vacation to Harrison Hot Springs in Canada over Labor Day weekend. The year was 1955. Auntie Miriam had a friend, Joanne Schuster, whose family also happened to be going to Harrison Hot Springs that weekend with her brother, Joe. The two of them schemed to introduce their siblings and thought they'd make a great match. Well, I guess they were right. As my mom puts it, they fell in love within 2 days. Joe had just graduated high school and was attending the University of Washington, recently joining the Sigma Alpha Mu fraternity. Although Mom was only 17 and still in high school, she immediately got swept up into the college and fraternity life with her new Joe. She recounted with great enthusiasm how they went to all the fraternity parties and made a lot of new friends. Friends, as it turns out, they would end up knowing for a lifetime. It was a very exciting time in her life. A highlight was when Joe pinned Arlene, giving her his fraternity pin, which is essentially an indication that they were engaged to be engaged. The pinning occurred at the fraternity house's winter formal, and the members serenaded Mom for the occasion. Even more exciting was when Joe's fraternity brothers showed up at her grandparents' house and serenaded her again from the front lawn. My mom loved this time of her life. She'd wait anxiously for our dad to pick her up for dates in his 1955 Chevrolet, hopped up with dual exhaust pipes, which you could loudly hear coming from a mile away. My grandparents were not too thrilled with this part, but otherwise they thought Joe was a real catch. After all, he was such a nice Jewish boy, and he was going to be a doctor. Our parents were married on a scorching hot day in Seattle, July 27, 1958, on our dad's 21st birthday. After Mom graduated from Garfield High School, her parents insisted she attend the University of Washington, but she hated it and made up her mind to do something else. After some investigating, she enrolled in medical secretarial school. She did this all on the sly, knowing she'd be disappointing her parents, but nonetheless sat them down, as she put it, and told them what she was doing. She was very nervous. Nevertheless, her parents supported the decision. This moment was both pivotal and foretelling, as it was the first time that she decided to buck the system of what others wanted her to do, using her own resources to figure out her own path and go after it. After earning her certificate, she worked in the pathology department at Providence Hospital, then at Swedish. Mom loved this type of work, and she was very good at it. She had an excellent innate sense for organization, administration, and management. By 1960, as newlyweds, they quickly stepped into the rhythm of building a life together. That year, Steve was born, and 3 years later, Brian. In 1964, the family packed up and moved to Indianapolis, Indiana, for our dad's residency program, about as polar opposite a place of Seattle as you could get. They rented a small home in a quaint little neighborhood near the hospital and settled in for the next 2 years. The move to Indiana would be another pivotal moment for my mom and our family that would profoundly impact her life. If you believe that God has a plan, this would be one of those times. After moving in, my parents quickly met the next-door neighbors, and in true Midwest form, they were very hospitable. These were the Medlicotts, husband and wife, Bill and Barbara, and their 2 children, Bart and Bunny. I kid you not. Bill and Barbara were about 8 years older than our parents and pretty much took them under their wings, helping our mom a lot settling into a foreign city with 2 small children and a husband who spent most of his time at the hospital. To say this was a godsend would be an understatement. As it turns out, this would not be one of those neighborly friendships that come and go as one moves from time to time. Indeed, this would become a lifelong, meaningful friendship between our families and of the most unlikely sort. In retrospect and on the surface, they had little in common. Joe and Arlene were liberal Democrats, Jews from Seattle. Bill and Barbara were conservative Christian Republicans from the Midwest. By all accounts, it shouldn't have worked, but it did. Because underlying these differences were powerful similarities of values and respect, and they took the commandment, love thy neighbor, to heart. We certainly can learn a lot from this in today's polarized world. Barbara and our mom became best friends and remained that way for 55 years, until Barbara's passing just a few years ago. Despite the distance, our families remained inextricably connected. Over the years, they visited each other countless times, Mom attending church with Barbara when in Indiana, and Barbara coming to synagogue with Mom. In addition to attending family events and celebrations, Barbara and our mom spoke on the phone every Sunday. Our mom was not a particularly social person. She had just a few close friendships and didn't really have the time for surface level engagements. But the friendships she did have were deeply meaningful, loving, and supportive. Barbara was one of the few people whose close and constant friendship was a true blessing for them both. Near the end of their time in Indianapolis, I was born. This was also the first time in her life she decided to help others through teaching. Having decided to nurse me rather than formula feed, this act resonated with her. And knowing that nursing didn't come easily and naturally for a lot of women, she began teaching lactation classes at the hospital. She found teaching and helping others very fulfilling, which of course would become one of the greatest fundamental purposes of her life. Eventually, their time in Indiana came to an end, and they returned home ready to settle into a new chapter. This included building a new home on Lake Sammamish, where our dad had grown up spending summers. Our home on the lake became the hub for all family gatherings, activities, dinner parties, guests coming and going, and always a place to stay or live for those who needed it. Like her home growing up, the door was always open. They created a home that was warm and welcoming, filled with ancestry family photos, Jewish art, antiques, and books. Friday night Shabbat dinners were sacrosanct for our mom, and no matter what us kids had going on, Shabbat dinner was a non-negotiable. And our table was always open for anyone to join as well. One of my closest friends growing up, who is not Jewish, but was often there on Friday evenings, used to joke, "I've been to more Shabbat dinners than most Jews." Sundays were reserved for Sunday school, and in the afternoons, our grandparents' Moslers would arrive with freshly baked bagels or cinnamon rolls. At this point, Paul and Neil had also arrived, and so with 5 boys, 9 years apart, there was no lack of constant activity and mischief going on. Our mom did the best she could to manage all this, but sometimes it was a bit overwhelming, given all the responsibilities. And Dad working very hard at his practice, plus spending 2 nights a week working in the emergency room. Taking care of babies and adolescents, schlepping us around to school and activities, taking us to Sunday school, cooking, sewing, hosting guests, birthday parties, sleepovers, and the list goes on. Looking back, and despite having some help, I'm honestly not quite sure how she did it. Somehow, amidst all this, she still had time to spend being a mom. Some of the most vivid memories I have of her are just fun times, like when she'd take us boys down to the lake at night to go skinny dipping, let us go skinny dipping, or make cookies and always letting us lick the bowl. Or one time I came home from school upset and she gave me a big hug saying, "Let's do some finger painting to feel better." I vividly remember so many meals our mom made on those nights Dad was working ER. These nights, we were frequently subject to eating the infamous casserole dinner, or quite often reserved for new experimental dishes, like lettuce wraps, which we'd never heard of. Who knew at the time they'd be such a thing decades later? On top of it all, Mom was always volunteering, serving on various committees, including Temple Sisterhood, the school's PTA, helping with Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts events, etc. She was also a bit of an activist. While not an overtly vocal person, she certainly wasn't afraid to stand up for things she believed in. Like when she decided it was wrong that the schools were putting up Christmas trees and making all the kids sing Christmas carols, ignoring the sensitivity of other religious groups. She decided to campaign the Issaquah School District to remove the trees, stop forcing singing of Christmas songs, and put into real practice the separation of church and state laws. Well, let's just say this was not super popular amongst the majority of the other school parents. And you try being the kid whose mom wants to take away Christmas. But at the end of the day, she was right, and the school district realized that. It was through her efforts that changes were made. In another campaign, she played a significant leadership role to annex our entire neighborhood from the Issaquah School District into Bellevue because of the proximity of the schools. Like our father, our mom showed my brothers and me that speaking up, taking action, and having the courage to bring about change is not only important, but possible. As we continued to grow up, a new calling began to emerge for our mom, one that would define the next great chapter of her life, her evermore desire to explore and expand her Jewish identity. She started teaching Sunday school at Temple, and she loved this, carefully preparing her curriculum for each week. Saying that she was a beloved Sunday school teacher would be an understatement. But not only beloved by her students, but effective and inspiring. But don't take my word for it. For full effect, I point out that 2 of her former students now are the rabbis at this very temple, Rabbi Molly and Rabbi Dusty. Over and over again, our mom's life came back to the circular element of being a student and a teacher, always learning, always sharing her knowledge through teaching. She loved teaching, and she loved being Jewish. More and more, she became involved with the synagogue, also working part-time in the office, to eventually becoming the full-time education administrator for many years. Our mom shared that early in life, she had this calling to God, but it wasn't until later that she was able to explore and pursue it. Unlike so many people who go through life wishing they had pursued their dreams or thinking it was too late, she didn't let that stop her. She knew she had another purpose, and though not an easy path, she had the courage and chutzpah to pursue it. First, having never had a bat mitzvah as a teenager, she decided to pursue this and studied hard to finally become a bat mitzvah at age 42. I remember sitting in synagogue next to my grandparents, our whole family watching her on the bima. It was such an inspiring and prideful moment. But as we all know, it didn't end there. She continued to immerse herself in studying, participating in a weekly women's Talmud class, taking Torah classes, and continuing to teach Hebrew and Sunday school. In the introduction of her book of poetry, she writes this: "All of the poetry contained herein is a product of the collective unconscious, of my Jewishness as inseparable from the very fiber of my being." And so at age 50, she decided that her ultimate calling was to become a rabbi. A monumental task by all measures, given she was 50, didn't have an undergraduate degree, and mostly because she was a woman. But those hurdles, as monumental as they seemed, did not stop her. Ultimately, she found a small rabbinic course program in New York, which accepted her into enrollment. For the next 7 years, she immersed herself in her studies to pursue her dream and her calling. And at age 58, our mom was ordained, and from then on simply known as Rabbi Arlene. At the time, female rabbis were still quite rare, even in the Reform movement. By all accounts, she was the first practicing female rabbi in Seattle. Now that she had accomplished her goal, the question became, as they say in Hebrew, mazeh, what now? Over the years, when I'd tell people about my mom, they'd usually ask the typical question if she had a congregation. I would explain that she taught, officiated, and ministered people in small towns, often traveling great distances to bring Jewish life where it was needed most. Places like Fairbanks, Alaska, or Redding, California, or Paulsbo, Washington. So yes, she in fact had many congregations. These small Jewish communities did not have the opportunity or money to afford a resident rabbi. In fact, most didn't have a formal synagogue. I recall quite clearly the many years Mom was no longer with us during the high holidays because she was conducting services in these small towns, some of which had never had a rabbi present to do that. And she started teaching the children in these small remote towns so that they could achieve becoming a bar or bat mitzvah. Of course, in those days, there was no FaceTime, Zoom, or team meetings. All of this was painstakingly done over a landline phone. After 6 months of training, Mom would fly to the community and conduct the service for the bar or bat mitzvah, an otherwise unreachable dream for these Jewish families. At the same time, she was busy here in Seattle, also teaching and training with a steady stream of students coming to the house. Many of these students had been unable to study with other teachers or rabbis from their synagogues due to learning disabilities or anxieties. But Mom, with her patience, soft approach, and encouragement, was able to get them to the bima on their special day. She was also busy here locally, conducting many life cycle events for families. Most notably, she became the go-to rabbi for other rabbis throughout our community who could not otherwise perform certain ceremonies. You see, in those days, most rabbis had strict policies against conducting weddings, for example, for interfaith couples. Not Rabbi Arlene. She worked outside the lines and was happy to marry people who desired to have a Jewish ceremony while encouraging inclusion and a Jewish life. At one point, in a powerful turn of events, Mom agreed to conduct a ceremony for a cousin and her same-sex partner who wanted to consecrate their relationship under God, like a marriage. This was a time that gay marriage wasn't even talked about much, let alone considered viable or accepted. For our cousin and her partner, Mom conducted what they called a commitment ceremony, with all the constructs, prayers, and symbolism of a traditional marriage. And the word got out. Over the years, Mom became very well known as a respected scholar, inspiring and progressive rabbi, and a humble leader in the Jewish community. And in doing so, she had realized her greatest purpose. After years of dedicated service and spiritual leadership, in the early 2000s, a quieter phase of life for our parents began to unfold. They made the difficult decision to sell the family lake house and move to a smaller home in Woodridge, just a few miles away. Our parents made their new home just as warm and inviting as the old one, showing us it's not about the four walls that make a home, but who and what's inside them. After both our parents retired for the most part, they had the opportunity to travel more. My mom wasn't big into camping in the traditional sense, and our dad definitely was in the intense sense. So they compromised and bought a camper trailer. They took several 3-month-long adventures in that trailer, including up to the northern parts of Alaska, and another all through the lower states. This was a time for them to have fun, explore, buy more tchotchkes, and reconnect as a couple. They loved these trips, and Mom talked about them fondly. As most of you here know, our dad unfortunately passed away just a few years into their retirement in 2008, cutting short many plans my parents had for the coming years. After 50 years of marriage, Mom was now a widow. For the years after, Mom kept busy attending services at both Temple B'nai Torah and Herzl Ner Tamid, kept up her weekly Talmud study group, did some rabbinic work here and there, and continued to host kids, grandkids, and friends coming for the holidays. She lived a quiet life, doing her New York Times crossword puzzles in record time, reading, studying, and taking the famous dog dreidel for walks. When the burden of living alone became too much, she moved to the gardens, never looking back. Regularly, she would tell me how lucky she felt to be living there, the wonderful care she received from the staff, and the group of lovely friends she'd made and ate dinner with every night. That was Mom. When things changed, she didn't dwell on the past, but made the best out of each new situation. Our mom was a person of many layers. While she didn't come across as overtly nurturing or effusive in her personality, she also rarely complained, always supported you and didn't judge, wasn't a gossip, was straight-laced but not a prude, was kind and compassionate, deeply dedicated to Judaism, and above all, loved her family and her community. Particularly in today's world, there are ideas and pressures of how a person should be based on social norms. Our mom had it figured out long before authors wrote about how gratitude rewires your brain, or people coined the terms like FOPO or FOMO. What you saw was what you got. She was an authentic person. She didn't feel the need to comport to social norms. She did what she wanted to do and not what she didn't. She dressed the way she wanted to, certainly not based on the latest Nordstrom catalog. She led her life, not missing out, but adding in meaningful experiences. She stood up for things she believed in, even when it was not going to be an easy path. She certainly wasn't into small talk, but if she had something to say, you better listen up. It's well known that the grandkids had a running bet of who could keep her on the phone the longest when they called to say hello. You see, she wasn't the mom or grandmother that was going to spend hours gossiping on end about your latest social activities or taking you shopping at the mall for the afternoon. That wasn't her. What was her was instilling values like the importance of family, of Jewish rituals, helping you study for your bat mitzvah, teaching you how to bake bread, and the beauty of celebrating the Jewish holidays using the same candlesticks her grandmother used. Meaningful moments, lessons, and experiences that would foster a deep legacy and indelible values to her children, her grandchildren, and her great-grandchildren. In another poem she writes, called Cut Glass and Camellias, "Grandmother, in the winter of your life, you lovingly placed into my hands a treasured bowl of cut glass. Heavy and shimmering in the light, it is mine, you said, and now it is time for you to care for it. Many years it rested upon the shelf in my home, and now it is yours. Cherish it as I have, and I will always be with you." In her final years, she continued to reflect deeply and gratefully on the life she had lived and the legacy she was leaving. At Mom's 85th birthday, she spoke eloquently about her life and things that mattered to her most, her family, ancestors flowing through us. She talked about the wonderful folks at the gardens and her life there. She spoke of a theme she developed in her life and called it an attitude of gratitude. While all these things are pretty serious, like her mother, there was a sense of humor too that came out on occasion, with a giggle and a laugh that we all love to hear. In another poem which shows this side of her, titled Lumps in Mashed Potatoes, she writes, "When you find lumps in your mashed potatoes in the middle of the day, why not daven mincha, read the words of our Ashrei? Take out your trusty siddur, let your cares unfold, pray the words you see there, as in the days of old. Each letter of our Aleph Bet, with its special words of praise, is there to lift our spirits through all kinds of days. I prefer my mashed potatoes smooth and creamy all the time. Life's just not like that, you see, which is why I wrote this rhyme." Speaking of poetry, the poet Thomas Campbell once said, "To live in the hearts of those we leave behind is not to die." This is how our mom lived and how she left this world. The richness of her life, full, complex, and purposeful, leaves an indelible mark in our family and in the hearts of everyone she touched. I think the best example of this comes from the uniquely close relationship she had with her great-granddaughter, Kayla. Kayla, just 5 years old, will tell you if you ask. Great-grandma Arlene is my best friend. When Kayla was told that Grandma had passed away, Kayla said, "I won't visit Grandma Arlene anymore, but I will still love her." And so, as we honor our mom, may we carry her legacy forward in how we live, love, inspire, and stand true to who we truly are. Amen.
There it is. The shepherd takes care of us. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. You lead me in the right paths for the sake of your name. Even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar. Binodeh sheyarbitzeni al mei menuchot yinaleni. Nafshi shovei yancheni b'maglet tzedek למען שמו, גם כי אלך בגץ על מוות, לא אירא רע, כי אתה עמדי, שבטך ומשענתך, המה ינחמוני. תערוך לבני שולחן נגד צורריי, דשנת ושמן ראשי. כוסי רוויה, אך טוב החסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. And you, Arlene, shall dwell in the house of God forever.
This past year, my kids started Taekwondo, so I know more than I used to know, which was nothing, and now I know a little bit. I always thought that in martial arts that you start as a white belt and you learn the basics, and then after you master the basics, you move up to the next level and the next level, and then you eventually get to be a black belt, which means that you know all the things and can do them all, and you're a master of all things. I don't know what those things are, but it turns out that when you become a black belt, it really means you've become a master of the basics. Each level is reinforcing the basics of martial arts so that once you become a black belt, only then, as a master of the basics, can you start to learn all the other things. I've been thinking a lot about the role that Rabbi Arlene played in my life and how to sum her up and sum up her impact. And on the most basic level, she was my 5th grade Hebrew teacher. I think 5th grade Hebrew teachers are among the most underappreciated Jewish educators. They're not the bat mitzvah tutor who gets you to that endpoint, although apparently she did that with people in other places. It's not the high school teacher who gets to bring out all the flashy topics that kids are interested in. It's not the first-year Hebrew teacher who introduces you to the excitement of learning Hebrew. The 5th grade Hebrew teacher is that solid, I'm going to say the sensei of Hebrew teachers, Hebrew schools, because it is their job to help you master the basics of Hebrew, which is critical because those basic skills are the building blocks that lead to everything else. And that was Rabbi Arlene for me, and I know for so many others. Over the last 5 years, I have delighted in seeing her at most Shabbat services. She would never say much to me, but she would kind of shuffle by and say something quiet to me like, I think it's great that you're here, or I have a yard site, it's a long O, Mosler. Yes, I know. So, and I always took immense joy in observing her watching Kayla during the service. But my favorite was always when a former student who hadn't been here in a while would show up for a service, and as soon as they spotted her, they would beeline over to her, greet her, Rabbi Arlene is here, and they would always have something to say. I'm wearing the kippah that you showed me how to make, you taught me this, and whatever it was, they were always so excited to see her. And that was the thing about Rabbi Arlene. She was a teacher in the best sense. She wanted to make sure her students learned how to master the basics of Hebrew and Jewish life so that then they could go out and do the things themselves. That chain of tradition was paramount to her, whether it was in her family, passing on recipes, teaching the grandkids how to bake, or with her students, teaching us the Aleph Bet, how to tie tzitzit. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs writes, the teachers open our eyes to the world. They connect us to our past and our future. The influence of a good teacher stays with us. They're the people who really shape our lives. Each time I hear myself saying to a student, well, this is how I remembered as a kid that the 3 dot makes an S sound, whatever it is that I'm teaching them, I know that I'm helping the next generation become masters of their own tradition. It's not the most sexy stuff, not the most exciting thing. But those are the moments that I am very grateful to have had Rabbi Arlene as my teacher and to be one of the links in that mighty, mighty chain that she created here at Temple B'nai Torah. As Mark mentioned, both Rabbi Dusty and I had the privilege of learning from Rabbi Arlene and Cantor David. And so I'm going to invite Rabbi Dusty up to share a little bit of her own reflections, followed by Cantor David. And
I learned that Rabbi Arlene taught people how to feed babies.
Yeah.
And I thought I'd bring my baby, since she's sleeping anyway. Okay. I know, both my mother and Rabbi Molly are very sad that I'm still holding this child, because I have backups for if she decides she would like to be vocal. I could give her away if I needed. I'm not going to. I'm mostly here as proof of what you've already heard. It's not an exaggeration to say that Rabbi Arlene, who I always just knew as Arlene, even once she was a rabbi, and she was never offended by that, but I am grateful to have known both Arlene, because I think I did know her before she was Rabbi Arlene, and then Rabbi Arlene. It's not an exaggeration to say that both as a Temple B'nai Torah member and as a teacher, she helped form my Jewish identity, who I am today as a person. Being swung around by my arms, giggling wildly out on the patio in front of the little temple in the woods by Neil, is one of my earliest memories at TBT, and I know this is Neil and not Arlene, but moms get some credit for raising kids who help the next generation feel loved. So all of you get some credit, and she gets some credit for all of you, and that's one of the reasons that she is who she is to me, is because you all are who you are. Later, my parents would drive me to Arlene and Joe's for Hebrew tutoring. Now I know perhaps that's because I needed special attention. Go figure. I held on to that green prayer book, Hebrew the Easy Way workbook, long enough that I believe I used it to help prepare for the Hebrew test when I applied to rabbinic school at Hebrew Union College. And most importantly, Rabbi Arlene consulted with my family around creating the talit that we designed and that my sister sewed for me for my bar mitzvah. The light purple talit that I wear most Shabbats now as a grown human being. Every time I've worn that talit since I was 13, and I've worn that talit literally all over the world, I silently thank Arlene for giving me and so many people the permission and guidance to shape a ritual item ourselves, to feel a sense of ownership over our own Judaism at such an early stage. There's so many things I didn't know about Arlene until you just shared them. But as it turns out, I did know them all. And as a role model, all of the things that she was and that I know her to have been are proven by who she was that I didn't even know about. And I am proof. And I am one of so many people who are the proof of who she was in the world. Quiet and firm and very, very steady. And she always knew exactly who she was and what she was going to do and how she was going to do it. And I cannot think of a better person to have gotten to sit behind in services every Friday night from this age to have shown me what it means to be a person and a rabbi in the world.
It's an honor to be here, especially with the Schuster boys, but all of you. So many great memories. It's hard to realize we're supposed to be sad. And we are. And yet we're filled with so many great memories. I thank you all. The honor is mine to be here. I'm just going to say one story. And it's simple. All I have to do, and I say these words, there's going to be smiles here. Chocolate chip cookies. You knew that you were special when you went home with her chocolate chip cookies that she'd made. She'd make her version of homemade chocolate chip cookies, spoiled us rotten, because nothing in the store was ever as any good. Right? You can't eat. No offense to Costco, I love Costco. Costco cookies just never made it after you had Arlene's cookies. And she gave them to Michael and me always to take home in the days when, and it's wonderful that you mentioned this, that when she and Joe invited us to your family, and everything took place in the living room. It was either in the water or in the living room. So much happened at that huge table. I remember walking in there and saying, who has such a big table? How often it had so many people at it. And what an honor to be there and to walk home with her chocolate chip cookies. And we would always eat them. We never eat the whole bag. We'd eat one or two at a time and eat some more the next day because you wanted to keep that going. And so I'm going to end my comments. I mean, I could talk about so many years when we met in the 80s and how she helped us, helped the congregation, helped me personally so much. And we just see her off. I know among her favorite words were music done by Debbie Friedman. And so it's an odd choice but I do this with so much love as a blessing and a prayer for her. Lechi lach to a land that I will show you. Lechi lach to a place you do not know. Lechi lach on your journey I will bless you, and you shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. Lechi lach. And you shall make your name great. Lechi lach. And all shall praise your name. Lechi lach. To the place that I will show you. L'simchat chayim, with the joy of life. L'simchat chayim, lechi lach. And you who are our blessing, you who are our blessing, you who are our blessing, lechi lach.
Don't go far. In just a moment, we'll conclude our service here and make our way to Sunset Hills, after which everyone is invited to come back here for our meal of condolence. I'm going to invite Arlene's grandchildren to come forward. They'll be our pallbearers, helping us move out of the sanctuary. And then once we get to Sunset Hills, Arlene's 5 sons will be the pallbearers there. We're going to close here with the chanting of El Malei Rachamim, praying that Arlene be laid to an eternal rest. And as we make our way from here to Sunset, traditionally we say to those who are mourning, Hamakom Yenachem Etchem B'toch Sha'ar Avalei Tzion V'Yerushalayim, which means may God comfort you with all who mourn in Zion and Jerusalem. If that's too much of a mouthful, you can just say Hamakom Yenachem Etchem, or may God comfort you. I'll invite you all to please rise if you're able. As Kiara David recites El Malei Rachamim.
El Malei Rachamim, Shochen B'Maromim, Hamitzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanefei Hashchina, Im Kedoshim Dorim, Kezor Rakia Mazirim, Et Nishmat Esther Rochel, Bat Gershon v'Sara, Shahalacha le'olama, Et nishmat harav Rachel bat Gershon v'Sara, Shahalacha le'olama. Bal harachamim yastireh b'sedek anafav le'olamim. Vitzoror mitzror hachayim et nishmata. Adonai hu nachlata ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר